December 2021, one of the Gambia's most crucial elections is here. At Kerr Fatou, we got you covered. Our team of credible and knowledgeable analysts will bring you exclusive analysis of the event step by step and ballot by ballot coverage. They'll be joined by reputable studio guests to help analyze and break down key ballot issues to meet your needs. As candidates battle for the soul of the Gambia, our team of panelists will get you the information you need to make informed choices. Join our coverage Race for the State House every Thursday at 6 p.m. You decide, we got you covered. Your voice, your ballot with Kerr Fatou.
For all your pastry, bakery, and quality food, CK Restaurant is the only place to be. We do catering for birthdays, weddings, and all related services. We have all kinds of local foods, American, European, and even beyond. Come and have a taste of our local juice, ebe, and other services. At CK Restaurant, customer satisfaction is our priority.
Are you thinking of owning your dream homes? EJ Investment is here for you. Secure our quality bungalows with 2, 3, or 4 bedrooms, or our story buildings, 3 or 4 to 5 bedrooms at very affordable prices with flexible payment plans at our Sanyang Seaview Estate, where you can enjoy the cool breeze with modern infrastructure such as tar roads, covered drainage system, modern electrification with street lights, gated entrance with security posts, and social amenities such as gas station, shopping mall, medical clinic, park, schools, children daycare, and a lot more. Our dedicated team of professionals will keep the estate clean at all times, provide security and patrol team within the estate premises, install latest technologies such as CCTV, Wi-Fi, home network installation, solar panel, and power backup system. Also, check out for our additional home facilities and interior design service such as premium tiling, wall plaster, home landscape, fingerprint home lock, and a lot more. Visit our office at Senegambia Kololi Highway and get a free site visit tour, or contact us on 4464-838. WhatsApp us on 3259220. Or you can visit our Facebook page or Instagram on EJ Investments. EJ Investments, we are first in properties.
Islamic microfinance is becoming an increasingly popular mechanism for poverty alleviation, especially for developing countries around the world. This microfinance service adheres to the principles of Islam as a form of social responsibility. Yona Islamic Microfinance is the Islamic microfinance of choice in the Gambia, trustworthy and reliable. At Yona Islamic Microfinance, we provide savings products, current accounts, financing products in conformity with Islam. In addition, Yona Islamic Microfinance also offers local and international remittances, takaful fund, management of zakat, management of awqaf, trading and investment, and building of strategic partnerships to bring financial services to the doorstep of the poor with donor projects, madrasas, youth organizations, women groups, and farmer organizations. Make a choice with Yona Islamic Microfinance today. For more information on Yona Islamic Microfinance, call 377-2151 or 9832-151 or visit Yona head office at Tipa Garage, Bakote, or visit any Yona branch located countrywide near you.
Yeah, so dear listeners, welcome to Kerr Fatou, our special interview. My name is Sheriff Bojang Jr., and I've not been on the screen in a long time, but I think these are exceptional times, these are special times, and they need special intervention, and that's why I'm here today. And on this special interview, my guest is lawyer Aziz Bensouda. Familiar to some, probably not familiar to others. Aziz Bensouda is a barrister and he specializes in corporate and commercial law and banking and finance. He advises several financial institutions as well as corporations and investors in the Gambia. Mr. Bensouda, thank you very much for your time and welcome to this special interview.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
So over the course of the interview, I would like us to talk about a couple of things. First is the issue of asset declaration, which is a big issue in the country at the moment. Of course, going by what happened last week or over the weekend. And we'll also talk a bit about investment in the Gambia. So first to asset declaration. In our constitution, public officers are required to declare to the Ombudsman a written declaration of all properties and assets directly or indirectly owned by them and liabilities they own at the end of every 2 years. I'm not sure if this stands. You can tell me. First, I want you to break this down for me. Specifically, who is required to do this and who is exempted under the law?
All right. So I think you're referring to about Section 222 or 223 of the Constitution. So the first thing to note is who are public officers. Public officers refers in general terms to everyone employed indirectly or directly by government. As long as your salary is paid from public funds, you are a public officer. Now, the provision you're relating to says that everyone employed in the public service should all public officers should declare their assets every 2 years. They should also declare their assets when they leave public service, and it is assumed that they should declare their assets when they enter public service. However, there is something curious in this provision in the Constitution. It applies to public officers except public officers in the public service. So meaning that it applies to the president, the vice president, ministers, and National Assembly members, the speaker and deputy speaker. Everyone under that, the permanent secretaries, directors, local government officials, are not obliged to declare their assets. Mm-hmm. So the Constitution relates to the top cadre, the political appointees, but not the main public service, mm-hmm. if that makes sense.
Okay, and then obviously an asset declaration is a way of enhancing transparency and integrity and build trust of citizens in public administration. Are the enforcement mechanisms that we have at the moment of asset declaration law effective enough to help this country or the public achieve these objectives of transparency and integrity?
I would say no. Because, for example, if a minister declares his assets, the law only requires that he declare his assets and liabilities and every 2 years to provide them. But there is no mechanism for that declaration to be made public. And that is the difficulty that we have today. If as a journalist, for example, you want to know the assets of a particular minister, where can you make a request for that information? Where can you measure the growth or the reduction in assets every 2 years? The mechanism just isn't there. Now, the law provides that they should submit the asset declaration to the ombudsman. If there is a commission of inquiry or if there's a disciplinary matter, or if there is a tribunal proceeding, that tribunal or that process can request for this information. But for the public, there is no mechanism for that information to be requested. Mm-hmm. Now, you're right. Asset declaration is meant to enhance anti-corruption. It's meant to enhance transparency. In fact, it's even meant to protect the public official so that accusations that are baseless cannot be made against them because their assets are made public. But if the mechanisms that we have now don't go into detail, then it becomes a bit of a wasted opportunity.
So the issue of every 2 years, does that mean that the law does not require those public officials who already declare their assets, for example, to update their submission to the ombudsman whenever there is significant change in, let's say, their holdings?
No. So the obligation to report is time bound. So every 2 years, they submit a new declaration. They don't have to report every time they buy or sell something, or their net worth goes up or down. I think the focus should not be personal to the office holder as to what is going on in their private business life, but rather it's to create a milestone that in 2016 this was your position. In 2018 you might hold a different office. The public should be able to know how your personal finances have grown or reduced, whether the conflicts of interest arose, whether your private business has put you in a position where you may not be, you may be distracted from the core duty you have, an obligation to the Gambian people. I think
when they declare to the ombudsman after those assets and everything else has been declared, what happens to the public when it comes to accessibility, public access to those details, those information?
So as it stands now, there is no avenue for the public to access that information. The ombudsman has it, but the ombudsman is not obligated to provide that information to the public. And that's where it becomes, as I said, a wasted opportunity, because the whole point is not for this information to stay within the government domain, but to be accessible to media practitioners like yourself, so that the public can have a mechanism to hold their leaders to account. And so that when the leaders leave public office, for example, we can, as lay people, determine whether or not they use their office directly or indirectly, or during the term of their office, they had increased their net worth or reduced it.
And how does this asset declaration address or can address the issue of conflict of interest among public officials?
Very, very clearly. So if, for example, you're a minister let's just choose for the purpose of discussion, the Minister of Land, and before you had gone into office, you had declared three properties. When you leave office, you declare 13 properties. Then, of course, the public will be able to legitimately ask, well, how did he acquire these 13 properties? Those particular transactions would lead the public to make a determination of whether or not there was a conflict of interest. And for you as the public servant, you would know that, well, before I came into office, my assets were in the public domain. I better not start acquiring those assets in a manner that would put me in a position to be on the receiving end of an accusation of a conflict of interest.
Yeah, and let's look at the asset declarations that were made over the last couple of weeks that actually triggered my interest in this issue. We've seen that over the last few days, the declaration of assets by presidential contenders at the time has been generating a lot of interest all of a sudden, because they've been happening, but this one generated special interest. We've seen that before Saturday, two aspirants at the time, Hussein Odabo of UDP and Dr. Ismail Assise of CA, voluntarily made their assets available to the public. On Saturday, the media and private citizens got some access to assets declared by other contenders, including President Adama Barrow. I want you to break this down for us. Under the law, what are these presidential contenders, aspirants, obliged to declare?
Well, the law as it relates to nominees for president can be found in the Elections Act. So under the Elections Act, the IEC should just ensure that presidential nominees submit a declaration of their assets. It doesn't state in what form this should be. It doesn't state whether they should disclose assets, income, and liabilities. each person should, to the best of your ability, simply declare your assets. So I can see from the reporting that there must have been different formats for declaring assets. Some nominees declared household items, value of vehicles, stated the location of the properties, and others did not. So it's a very limited process. I think it's another wasted opportunity. The declaration should have been probably online or through some other means, so that the journalists and the public would have an opportunity to really scrutinize these assets declarations. But to answer your question very simply, there is no form. Each person will look at his assets, have a mechanism for valuing those assets, and submit that valuation. And if they are to stand for president in 5 years' time, having already succeeded this time, the new asset declaration would give us a benchmark to compare the two. But if we don't have full access to the 2021 declaration, then that poses a difficulty for 2026.
And that means any candidate can undervalue or overvalue their assets that they declare.
Of course, there is no way to determine if they say there's a property in pipeline that's worth 50 million. There's no way to determine it because we don't know the address for the property. Of course, there should be some balance between maintaining the confidentiality of some information. But I think if you're running for public office, the Gambian Constitution and the Elections Act has allowed us that latitude and has put you under that obligation to make sure that you're being transparent with your assets. But as I said, it's been a difficult process to measure because we haven't had full access to the data, only to reports, third-party reports.
And from the information of the assets that were seen, at least by the public, did the exercise give a strong enough idea of wealth variations of the people seeking for the highest seat of the land? What is mandatory and what is voluntary?
Again, there is no, the format is not strict. It simply says you should declare your assets. And the ombudsman, you may be aware, the ombudsman has no power to review any matter relating to the president. So if, for example, the IEC accepts asset declaration today, and the asset declaration is severely undervalued, there is no consequence for the president. There is no mechanism under Gambian law for the ombudsman or any party to review the asset declaration of the president.
Yeah.
So in short, as long as the IEC accepts that asset declaration, it becomes then a confidential document which we are not able to access, and it doesn't become an effective system. Ideally, we should have been able to see, for example, President Adama Barrow's declaration of 2016.
Yeah.
We should have been able to see how many properties there were, what the bank balances were, how many vehicles there were, and measure that against his asset valuation, his asset declaration of 2021. That would then give you an answer to your question, which is how many new assets has the president acquired during his term in office? Do these create a conflict of interest? Do these create activity that came to his knowledge or to him because he was president and was able to access this? All of this create difficulties for the person, as well as challenges on the Gambian law and consequences as well. But without that information to compare, one cannot have a basis to determine how useful this asset declaration was.
Yeah, and among the properties that the president declared, the property in his home village, Mankunda, which according to his declaration form was built in 2018, that the value was worth $15 million, according to that declaration form. It didn't say with what funds he built this house, he acquired this property. So the law doesn't say anything about that. It's voluntary for him to say where he acquired the wealth in order to build this.
One thing to note as well, a president that was engaged in business before he became president does not have to close that business or does not have to divest himself of that business. There was an amendment, I think, in 2006 that allowed the president to continue to have that business or those investments, provided they're under a trusteeship. So as part of the asset declaration, if, for example, as you're saying, it is correct that he built a $15 million house in 2018. I would have expected that, and if it's business income or cash that was, if it's cash that was already on hand,
Yeah.
it should not matter. But if it's income generated from a business, we should have also seen who is the trustee for this business. The asset declaration should have involved the financial statement and accounts of those business. Is tax being paid by that business? $15 million is quite a lot of money. And I would expect the asset declaration to have some substance and to really be able to answer our questions, because this is a legitimate question. How are you able to build a $15 million house within a year of occupying office? Unless, of course, you already had the wealth.
And the bank balances as well, because we've seen the figures and bank balances declared by the president range from little over $74,000 to a whooping $12.4 million. It never said when the transfers were made from Mr. A to the bank or from one bank to the other, or the source of those money. So that also is at the mercy of the president to voluntarily say this, but he's not required by law to say where those money came from or the period those transfers were made.
Yes, and this is where the asset declaration has to have a purpose. We as Gambians have it in our law that there should be an asset declaration. We should ask ourselves, why do I need to see an asset declaration? Is it just out of some curiosity to know what the president owns? Or is it legitimately for us to get some information that we can ask very difficult questions and be able to hold him to account? So ideally, again, we have not seen the actual declaration, but there probably should have been some statement of account that we can see where this money came from and whether it's money that existed before he became president. But without that information, again, it becomes a wasted opportunity. And then I think the IEC should reconsider its process. If the point is that nominees are opening themselves up to the public so that the public can make an informed decision about the integrity and to know more about our candidates, then certainly we should have had this information for a more prolonged period, and we should have been able to scrutinize this information and answer the questions that you are asking.
And even that scrutiny, the public, everybody was given, anyone who went in there to look at the declaration forms and other documents of the candidates and aspirants was given 5 minutes, just 5 minutes. So now I'm asking, in your capacity as a Gambian, not a lawyer, what's your take on this? Because a lot of people complain that 5 minutes was too small a time for them to even go through half a document of one candidate.
Well, I'll put it like this. There were 23 nominees. All of them submitted a few files to a few boxes. Within 5 minutes, you're unable to scrutinize even one. If the purpose of the public scrutiny was to allow you to choose between these 23, then that was a waste of time. You could not choose. The other problem as a Gambian that I have, or as a lawyer as well, is that this public scrutiny is not in the law. The IEC declares a period for nominations. Objections can be made on the day of nomination of each nominee. So it is not possible to make an objection on the Saturday that passed because everyone has already been nominated. So that day that was created for public scrutiny was just there, but it had no legal basis.
Right.
And of more concern is that everyone had from up to 4 p.m. to submit objections. So assuming the 5 minutes was adequate, you had to submit your objection before 4 p.m.
Right.
There are 900,000 registered voters. Potentially 900,000 people could submit an objection. The IEC made its decision at 5 p.m. Is it humanly possible to review potentially 900,000 objections in 1 hour? It's not. That can lead one to make the reasonable assumption that, well, the IEC has already made its decision. This public scrutiny is more of a procedure and form, but not really something that is going to change their mind. So in short, I would say that the IEC should reconsider this process. look at the practicality of managing an election in Gambia under the present circumstances, which is to assume that every year there will be over 20 nominees. The public is now yearning for information. Probably the nomination process should be longer. Probably the nomination process should be a lot earlier and away from the elections, so that justice can really be done to this process of public scrutiny. Otherwise, a lot of frustration comes out of it, a lot of unanswered questions.
Questions, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and two of curious about it. Two of the aspirants whose nominations were rejected by the IEC said it wasn't the right thing to do, and they said they were going to challenge that. I know the first step is you make an appeal to the IEC. You appeal the case before the IEC. What happens after that?
So you have to make an appeal to the IEC within to the commission. So the returning officer rejects the nomination, and the nominee that is unhappy with that rejection appeals within 2 days to the commission. Now, the Elections Act says that when the commission decides, first it doesn't say when the commission will decide. We assume they will decide very promptly because of the time limit to elections. But once the commission decides under the Elections Act, it says it shall not be called into question in any court of law. But as lawyers, we know that that provision is unconstitutional, and courts will still receive your petition or complaint against the commission findings.
So in fact, IEC's decision is not final. If you fail in the appeal, you can still go to the court.
Yes, you can.
Right.
Yes, you can. And I wouldn't be surprised if there are several defects in their process, because it was quite a rushed process. I think about 4 candidates per day at some points. So it was quite a congested process.
And Aziz, I'm also concerned about the issue, or interested in the issue of gift. Can the president, for example, accept gift? If he can, should it be declared to the public?
I have to say I'm not prepared for that question, so I can always be corrected on it. My feeling is no, the president cannot accept gifts. If he can, it should be probably a symbolic gift or a gift from one state to another in his capacity as president. If I was advising, I would probably say declare it. Let it be clear that it is not a gift that would conflict with your obligation to make good decisions in favor of the Gambian people, and before you can accept it as a personal gift. But this business of generally accepting gifts that have tangible value, like a gift that is equivalent to $100,000 from a local businessman in a regulated industry, whose competitors would rightly feel that, well, now he has an advantage. I don't think those gifts should be accepted by the president. Can you accept gift from international investors who are coming to participate in economic activity where they would have competitors who would again rightly feel that the person giving the gift has an advantage over them? No, these are gifts that a president should avoid. And as I said, my feeling, having not looked at the law, would be that no, the president cannot accept it. And there's some provisions regulating the conduct of a president, and among those taking decisions or taking action that would be detrimental to the economy of the Gambia, and also conducting himself or herself in a manner that would bring the office of the presidency into contempt. All of this sends a signal to the president that probably the practice of accepting gifts is something that the Constitution frowns upon, and would put a president in a precarious situation vis-a-vis impeachment, for example.
Yeah, and then oftentimes I see people talking about these issues on the social media, the issue of campaign financing. As it stands now, is there any cap to how much anybody can sponsor a political party ahead of election, during election time, or who can even make financial donation to a campaign?
So there is no cap. The Act only provides that political parties should submit their financial statements and audited accounts to the IEC. That should allow the IEC to understand where the funds are coming from. But if a Gambian donates $10 million, there's no consequence.
Right.
Although there is a restriction that non-Gambians should not donate. So non-Gambians, I think, are prohibited very clearly from donating to political parties. And if any political party receives a donation from a non-Gambian or sponsorship from a non-Gambian, then they risk deregistration.
And then also the asset declaration thing is also to avoid illicit enrichment of public officials. For example, in this case, the case of the president. What constitutes illicit enrichment?
Quite simply, it's using your position to obtain finances or wealth in a manner that is not in keeping with good governance, money laundering, best business practice, and so on. So a president can illicitly enrich himself in the way Yahya Jammeh was doing by acquiring property and acquiring wealth without paying good value for it through corrupt practices. There's a lot of ways in which a president can illicitly enrich himself by receiving gifts in exchange for giving favors to investors to have an easier ride in the economy in which they are participating. And these are all part of the items we should have been able to review so that we can determine whether the candidates we are voting for are living up to their promise of integrity, acting in good faith, and not being corrupt.
And then before I end this, one issue too that I'm particularly interested in is the issue of investment in this country. Let's say I come into this country from somewhere in the world with the purpose of investing here. What should I do? Which door should I knock?
If you're an investor coming into the Gambia, your first port of call should probably be GAIPA, the Gambia Investment and Export Promotion Agency. Their objective is to facilitate and make it easy for investors to find their way from department to department, gather the information they need, do the feasibility studies, and be able to start from zero to the end of their investment cycle and be able to start business. Some investors who know a bit more about the sector they want to enter will go directly to the agency involved. So if you're going to be investing in telecoms, some people will go to PURA, some people will go to the Ministry of Information. So investors who are unsolicited, who are not invited, are not restricted from going to permanent secretaries, from going to ministries and so on. That is something that Gambia government, I believe, is working on. There's a public-private partnership. I believe it's an agency that's being set up. But unfortunately, that relationship, that allowance of investors to go to different offices and knock on doors, even up to the highest office, that does create opportunities for conflicts of interest and opportunities for corruption. And whereas you have those civil servants who are very disciplined, who are not corrupt, who are able to handle these meetings, you have those, unfortunately, who are not. And that also makes it difficult for Gambians to have confidence that public officials are going to work every day, focusing on the work and not focusing on these meetings with investors and what benefits those can potentially bring. So it's something we need to work on as a country and also limit, because it also brings the respect people have for our government. It brings that down.
And the presidency, are investors required to, let's say, go to State House to meet the president in order to start their investment in the country for whatever discussion?
No, and I would think the president should not have time. Ordinarily, would be too busy to meet every investor that comes in. The agencies whose job it is to do due diligence on investors, to know whether they're serious, whether they have the capacity. Meeting the president ideally should be just to handshake, deal is done, you're about to start, here is some political motivation from the head of state that you're welcome in Gambia. But as a first step to meet the president should actually be protected from such meetings. Of course, every situation is different. There might be those investors who are well known, but as a general rule, no, State House should not be the the port of call when you come to Gambia to invest.
And then finally, Aziz, how friendly are Gambia's investment laws and policies?
On paper, very friendly. On paper, you can incorporate a company very quickly. You have very good protections. Our legislation actually affords a lot of protection from sovereign interference. Gambia government does not have immunity. But in practical terms, it can be very difficult. I mean, we deal with investors routinely, and they find they find us to be a very corrupt country. They find us to be a country where every agency or ministry you go to, they're kings in their own domain. Sometimes they may ask you for things which you shouldn't do. So Gambia, I think if you look at the latest ranking, we score very poorly in terms of investment friendliness. And I think our government needs to very quickly be aware of that while you may be getting piecemeal incentives here and there, the more the reputation of the country goes down, the more unhappy investors you have leaving the country, the less likely we are to get serious investors, even if we change. When Yahya Jammeh left, we could say, well, he was a dictator. Yeah. Ignore 2016, 1994 to 2016. But from 2017 to date, we have no excuse. And I can tell you that there's a long list of unhappy, legitimate investors that came here and were frustrated by lack of electricity, high fuel prices, poor internet, poor infrastructure, and on top of all of that, a frustrating experience with government and the civil service. So it's a tough country to invest in at the moment, unfortunately.
Aziz Bensouda, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
December 2021, one of the Gambia's most crucial elections is here. At Kerr Fatou, we got you covered. Our team of credible and knowledgeable analysts will bring you exclusive analysis of the event step by step and ballot by ballot coverage. They'll be joined by reputable studio guests to help analyze and break down key ballot issues to meet your needs. As candidates battle for the soul of the Gambia, our team of panelists will get you the information you need to make informed choices. Join our coverage, Race for the State House, every Thursday at 6 p.m. You decide, we got you covered. Your voice, your ballot with Kerr Fatou.
Love like fire. Wow. Love like fire. Xam ngeen rek affaire bi xam ngeen fan la? Skincare la. 2020 lañ wax de. Waaw. Fii nag mooy Kerr fan, Kerr Zero Tache. Perfect skin. Skincare saa su ne rek niñ ko dee defee rek. Loo lañ soxlaati rek. Maanaam bu ngeen am problème ci seen skin yéen xam ngeen fan la fii ngeen di ñëw suma xarit yeeg am di jàmm yi nga xam ne taas daf lañ sonaloon xam nga doon xeesal ba la ka xum éneew ma lañ ko nag waaye just in case comme ni ko gars yi di waxee rek en cas just in case loolu xew xam ngeen fi ngeen di ñëw fii ngeen di ñëw skincare plus si yu baax rek la ñoo dox nag ay baax rek fu ne la ñoo dem ci réew mi di lañ indi rek nag products yu baax du Paris du Italie du USA du fi mu nekk nii sax boole nañ ci nag Sweden fu nekk lañ leen a indilee products bu dee tamit nag da nga ñuul rek ñu lay jamaa natural beauty that melanin dripping we do have stuff for you as well emuñ si skincare products rek ñu ngi ci cuub yi tamit fu ne la ñoo jaar in fact sax last commercial bi ñu defoon waxuñ leen woon dañoo dox ci ay kawar 9A grade rek nag waaw we do have bundles as well hair si lu ne la ñoo dox ñun ñu ngi ci rafetal jigéen rek luy taaral jigéen rek waaw boo leen di tukki tamit bëggoon that classic suitcase ñu dañoo dox ci ay Samsonite duñ dee indi any brand of suitcases though other than Samsonite comme li ma dee wax rek boo eggee airport diri Samsonite dafa am nuñ laa xoolee waaw ngeen ne lan nag waaw skin ci moom la ñu gën a xamee nag skin care products ci moom la ñu gën a xamee ñu ngi dox tamit bentee tamit si ay dàlla man waaye man nag skin care mooy suma specialty xam nga rek jigéen bu sa xar kanam réglé loo def mu jag am nañ Patricia Reiner Kiwi Eye the whole range Lighten Up Gold Tomatine I mean the list can just go on and on and on and on lépp loo xam ne rek luy taaral jigéen la ci yooyu rek la ñoo dox Skincare Plus nag emuñ si Gambia rek ñu nga United States ñu ngi Gambia fii ba pare bu dee yaa ngi anywhere in Europe mun nañ la ko mail within 3 days rek ñetti fan rek nga jot say diw emuñ si loolu rek dañ laa consult tamit balaa ñu laa jaay diw dinañ def a free consultation pour wax la rek exactly li nga xam ne moo méngoo ak sa kanam dinañ leen wax tamit ne rek am nañ perfumes you know fragrances men's shirts accessories we do dresses as well we do blouses I mean we do shoes name it we do them Skincare Plus 2020 is our year of perfection zero task fi mu nekk nii réew mi fii kenn waratu fi task kenn waratu fi am problème kanam kenn waratu fi am problème yu picca boo ko amee dafa fekk ne rek ñëwuloo ci place bi fii
love like fire bring my love like fire
I get it.
Mbijan aganya.
Albaka.
Mbaka important.
Yo, nga transfer la sto.
Ya transfer la.
Ha, code nyenji.
Okay. Kosa. Nsila ID soto.
Sa soto. Sorry. I get it.
Mbijan bro.
Albaka.
Mbaka.
Bara alla service o tariaka.
Mbare.
Mo ki janna nun kunu bara tariaka.
Jannom yona forest de bureau. Gambia tonkon na no mbari ya bere. Birim koyna fo kato.
Bari si kodo kino kato ni fo bolong blabe to.
56 branches mola sota Gambia jang.
Ha?
Gambia kono ani Gambia bantala bankol. Nka kono kiya bere. Kodo sifa fo falindiro fo nyaadi lafta memmen na kodi to poto nin kodi maraw. Jannam number 1 di nyonta. Andum fana nata anoda enterprise sotale. Wolam nyindi ko domorol fana kol fana be firale de dadi ma ni domorol ni fana beteat. Gambia dawda yalo ma fa kendol sotale je.
Wo moyo diat.
Apelenta
ni wo ka ni lafta nyelen kendol e binaji.
Yalo bu kanyi la ko la baraka ba.
Yalo ndel chosano lo.
Abaraka.
We live in a day and age where technology is creating a world without borders, filled with unlimited potential to improve the lives of the people around us. Innovarex Global Health ushers in a new way of leveling the playing field with increased access to quality healthcare services delivered at your doorstep. Our qualified professionals are equipped with state-of-the-art point-of-care testing technology to conduct tests such as kidney function, liver function, electrolyte tests, body composition, hemoglobin, A1C, and many more services with the highest efficiency in delivering results. The addition to our flagship Wellness on Wheels, more fondly known as WOW Delivery Service, brings the entire clinical experience full circle. IGH has remained committed to creating the future of healthcare delivery. Gone are the days of sending loved ones outside the country for basic medical services. Innovarex Global Health offers a new peace of mind and takes pride in delivering the quality of care we all deserve.